I'm Alan Robarge, a psychotherapist and a relationship coach. Welcome to Improve Your Relationships, where I like to talk about attachment injuries and healing attachment trauma. And on this video, let's talk about the core concerns and the core practices. There are a total of 12, and this video is number 12 in a series. This is the last one that wraps it up. And if perhaps you've already seen the other 11, please bear with me one last time. I'm going to repeat. If you want a copy of this document to follow along and to read what I'm working off of, the core concerns and the core practices for insecure attachment relationship dynamics, you can find that by going to alanrobarge.com/core concerns. Let's jump in. Let's read number 12 and see what we have. Here we often fail to question our inherited romantic narratives regarding the purpose of relationships and how they work. We believe the assumptions taught us by romanticism, such as waiting for divine intervention to deliver us to our chosen soulmate, someone who fully understands us, someone who is devoted to us in adoration, someone who becomes our savior, someone who completes us, and lastly, someone who never leaves. Therefore, we choose to practice pragmatic realism and question our core beliefs. Let me explain further why this is so important. You don't have to believe what I believe. That's not the point. And we don't have to get into a philosophical conversation about if we do or don't believe, agree or disagree with some of the tenets of romanticism. It is not about polarizing what side, what you believe, who's on what side, and then arguing who's right. That's not my point. My point is that if you have an attachment injury or unintegrated attachment trauma, you might be susceptible to using certain beliefs, even if you value those beliefs. We don't have to argue that you believe it and it's important to you. That's not my point. My point is not to challenge you to unbelieve something that's important to you. I'm pointing out that there are some beliefs within romanticism and this romantic narrative that actually do not serve any of us, you, me, serve anybody who has an unintegrated attachment injury and at times suffers from the symptoms of attachment trauma. And if you're trying to attend to attachment trauma, if you're trying to invite new corrective experiences of emotional attunement that are going to overwrite the old programming or your brain's template for recreating insecurely attached scenarios, then it will be in your best interest to notice how some of these beliefs, some of the culture's the culture's idea of the romantic narrative, and that these core beliefs of how they define relationship, how people are supposed to perceive relationship, the outlook that you're supposed to have on relationship, how you're what your partner is supposed to be for you, and what you're supposed to be for your partner. If you have unintegrated attachment trauma, I am pointing out that some of these beliefs can actually derail your healing process and could actually get in the way of staying grounded in reality and staying grounded in operating from a centered place of holding true to who you are, as opposed to overly identifying with some of the beliefs of the romantic narrative and essentially losing your mind within the story of how the romance is supposed to play out. Many people give over, and I'm so sorry I emphasize that so much. Many, maybe. I think that's part of my life's work is devoted to this content, and it's very much in alignment with some things I've had to learn for myself. But I am very privileged and in the role of hearing stories from many people, working with clients and online interactions and people emailing me, that I am aware. I see the pattern. I know that because people believe in the romantic narrative and some of the very specific ideologies of the culture's definition of romantic narrative. And we have to acknowledge culture is such a generic word because many people from, all over the world watch these videos, and we're all living in different cultures. So you have to translate it into how this, what this means for you and your culture. But it's very, I feel pretty confident in saying, we would benefit from looking at, regardless of what culture you're in, the belief systems that define what a relationship, what a partnership, what a marriage is, and who your partner is supposed to be to you and how you're supposed to be to your partner, that it could disconnect you from staying grounded in reality. And I have just heard so many stories and met so many people who they blindly trust the romantic narrative. And that's what I mean by mindfully giving over to the story. They enter the story and they believe in the fairy tale wedding, the fairy tale relationship, and they believe in the, a happily ever after kind of naivete that is promoted. The romantic narrative is not a very thinking narrative. It's very, you can watch movies, you can, any romantic comedy, you can read mythology, you can read many stories, that the story structure, of the different components of the narrative that a relationship plays out, we meet a certain way, we have a feeling, I just know, he or she just know, we look at each other, and there's the spark. We're pursuing the spark. We just had the spark, and then you're like, oh, it's just so easy. We're just meant to be. That's another, the romantic narrative loves to talk about, well, it's just meant to be. And the romantic narrative also is rooted in tragedy. It only exists when you're disconnected and separated from your partner. So inevitably there's going to be a part in the story where, due to the degree of distress and struggle and it not working out, instead of people honestly looking at assessing reality and just saying, oh, it's not working out, it's the wrong partner, when they're under the influence of the romantic narrative, they tell themselves, oh, I guess I got to try harder because, we got to work through this. We got to fight for the other person. And we have to come out the other side having been transformed by our struggle. And as a result, we're going to have this epiphany moment, this waking up moment where we look into each other's eyes and say, oh, it was all worth it. This struggle was so worth it because now I have grown and you have grown and you know me better and I know you better. And aren't we just so amazingly romantically beautiful and loving? And our relationship really benefits from participating in this process or in this cycle. And what I'm pointing out is that this cycle is predictable. These belief systems are identifiable. And in fact, they're not really grounded in healthy relating. So let me repeat. Please believe whatever you want to believe. I am not challenging, some of the ideas of romanticism are really, really lovely, and there's some really great poetry that comes out of it. There's some wonderful song lyrics that come out of it. However, if you do not question what you actually believe and how you define relationship, and that you've been handed a definition by your culture and your family has probably supported it, it's very possible that you're reinforcing your own attachment wounds. You're reinforcing your own attachment trauma by continuing to believe certain things about the romantic narrative that's not really that helpful if you believe them. So question it. I challenge you to question it. That's the point of number 12 in this list, the core concerns, the core practices. Number 12 is taking a big picture view of looking the culture in which you're in and how you define relationship and how belief systems are really impacting one aspect, one component of why you keep recreating relationships that just, quite frankly, don't work. The romantic narrative is not a reliable model for how to be in relationship. Here we go. Number 12. Repeat it. We often fail to question our inherited romantic narratives regarding the purpose of relationships and how they work. We believe the assumptions taught us by romanticism, such as waiting for divine intervention to deliver to us our chosen soulmate, someone who fully understands us, someone who's devoted to us in adoration, someone who becomes our savior, someone who completes us, and lastly, someone who never leaves. Therefore, we choose to practice pragmatic realism and question our core beliefs. So the phrase here is pragmatic realism. Go ahead and love, enjoy romanticism. It's also can be helpful if you can introduce some pragmatic realism to balance that out in those times when you're distorting reality. And if you do not cultivate pragmatic realism, it's very possible that the romantic narrative will continue to distort reality. So it makes it really hard to make choices and to discern what you need to do in relationship. I hope that this was helpful. If you like this number 12, this is the last video in a series of 12 videos. I'm operating from a document that I'm calling the core concerns and the core practices. If you want to get this document, go to alanrobarge.com/core concerns. Also, please know that this content, everything I'm talking about here, is what we are talking about in the community membership website. Like-minded people, people like you who value this content and want to explore and encourage each other to go deeper and to ask questions and say, well, how does this impact your relationship? If that interests you, if you want to learn more about the community membership website, you can go to alanrobarge.com, and on the page community, there's information there to learn more. Lastly, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. There are more videos coming up, but not in this series. I'm done. 12 videos. 12 is enough. I'll have a different topic, something different next time. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.